Amos Gilead, Major General in Reserves, the head of this conference. Hello, hi. This peace, this declaration, this proclamation of normalizing relations with the UAE, did it surprise you? Yes, because I was not privy to it. However, we must say that the relations between Israel and the UAE in this area that I know well, the security area, was always very good. And we must remember that we have a huge asset, the relations with the Arab world, and that always relies on two legs: intentions and capabilities. It is always important to maintain our security, our strength, our relative strength, which should be better than any combination of enemies. And we must always remember that intentions can change. Look at Egypt, where the Muslim Brotherhood took over. In the eyes of the Muslim Brotherhood, Israel does not and will not exist. Turkey, suddenly the Muslim Brotherhood took over there. Iran used to be part of the family, it used to be an ally, and now suddenly it's an existential enemy. So now, all in all, I must say that we have a reality in place whereby we must, on the one hand, be thankful for, but on the other hand, if it is true about the F-35 after the submarines, this is very concerning. We'll get back to that in a moment, maintaining Israel's quality military edge. But I want to ask you, has peace arrived, or what are the chances that this public joining, and I would say with a lot of very good energy, because it's not just cold peace. We're talking about a strong desire by the UAE to do business with Israel, to say in every way that they are with us, without taking into consideration the Palestinian demands, and not even noticing what the Palestinians have said since they've signed this agreement. So will this bring an overall peace in the Middle East? First of all, this is not a peace agreement. It's a normalization accord. It's very important. The UAE is top quality. There are very sophisticated and intelligent people there. However, at the end of the day, our neighbors are the Palestinians. And with the Palestinians, there is distance. We are getting away from them, and I think that we are seeing the Palestinian Authority disintegrating, and it may be not important for many people, but it's important for anyone who cares about Israel's security. Because when we had peace negotiations with them, it brought us a lot of good. And now we're seeing things, the borders being switched. And so we may be finding ourselves becoming one state, and if something will happen in Gaza, we'll suddenly have millions of Palestinians, and we will no longer be a Jewish, Zionist, democratic state. I think that there are many of those who look down upon this and say, oh, why are you intimidating us? Why are you scaring us? Who needs all these scary scenarios? And when the Prime Minister doesn't speak with Abu Mazen, and Abu Mazen doesn't speak to the Prime Minister, the quality of life there deteriorates, the relations are going down. I'm hearing more and more voices saying, let's join Israel. But perhaps if there will be countries like the UAE who will be joining us, perhaps Bahrain, and at the end we will see MBS on stage on the White House lawn, and they'll be saying, don't dictate to the pace for us. And they'll agree to what they haven't agreed to until now. Perhaps you're right, but I would like to differentiate between Bahrain, with all due respect, it's an Arab country, it's very small. Oman, you know very well, you specialize in Iran. It is trying to be manipulative versus Iran with Saudi Arabia. If Saudi Arabia joins this is going to be a truly revolutionary, dramatic step. It will really be changing world order. But King Salman comes and says, no, it's not going to happen. And I believe him, because as the king, he is representing the traditional view whereby normalization has to come as part of an agreement, and underneath, under the surface, if things will happen and if the relations will progress. And the importance of normalization is that it is like a tree with many roots or with one root. So if what you're saying will happen, I mean, I hope so. You can pray for it, you can hope for it, but I don't see it happening. But you might say that the fact that the Palestinians have not really changed their opinion, even after Egypt has signed a peace accord with Israel, and after Jordan signed a peace accord with Israel, it's actually a sign that no matter who signs a peace agreement with Israel, I don't know about the right of return, but a Palestinian state, they will not managed without the 67 areas, 1967 areas. Look, even with Jordan, the security relations are wonderful, but the overall relations are absolutely terrible. We don't even have a dialogue with them. The Jordanians are saving so many lives for us and so much money. Their existence is an asset to Israel. It's unfortunate that so few understand that. I hear all sorts of terrible, silly opinions. We are feeding them. It is thanks to us that they have water. What are they talking about? We need them. We have great strategic depth vis-à-vis Iran. We have so many collaborations with them, and a lot has to do and depends upon the Palestinians, because the Palestinians are a majority in Jordan. If you ignore the Sunnis and Iraqis, the Jordanians cannot alienate the Palestinians. The Palestinians are taking advantage of it, and I'm seeing, unfortunately, that the collaboration we have built with them, the practical collaboration, is disintegrating. It is evaporating, and what's going to come instead of it? Hamas and Gaza are saying, we are the ones who are true. It's the only way that Israel understands, and we are justifying it every day. Why is there quiet in Gaza? Because we're paying them through Qatar. Well, the Jews only understand force, I guess. So how about maintaining Israel's quality military edge? Someone who's very close to the UAE administration has told me, I don't understand this whole business with the F-35. The UAE, MBZ has taken a very important step, and with open arms has welcomed Israel, and with a very clear atmosphere. Why shouldn't he get a F-35? Wonderful question. From his perspective, he's right. From our perspective, he's wrong. The UAE is an Arab country. It is very important. However, there's no danger of them attacking Israel. In the next 40 years, I don't see them attacking Israel. However, once you make a precedent, and according to a U.S. commitment, and we didn't force them to do it. They said, the United States said that it will not sell this fighting machine, this fifth generation fighter jet, and it is a huge advantage, and it also gives Israel an advantage in terms of its image. If the United States is saying it will not be sold, and now it's selling it to the UAE, why shouldn't Saudi Arabia get it? Why shouldn't Egypt now get it? Why shouldn't Jordan now get it? Who is going to guarantee to me that this will not reach other Arab countries as well? This American technology is so sophisticated that an enemy can attack Israel from miles and miles away. And the Israeli pilots, and they are amazing, they are very capable, and the Israeli Air Force's capabilities are amazing, they are all in danger. And also, if you rely more and more on our relations with the Arab countries, who can guarantee that tomorrow they won't join a coalition with Turkey, with Iran, with the Muslim Brotherhood, who took over Egypt? Sisi began as the Minister of Defense, as the head of the Egyptian army, who pleaded allegiance to the Muslim Brotherhood. And suddenly he got up at the last minute and changed things around, turned the tables. Yes, but historians will say, come on, what does Major General in Reserves Amos Gilead want from us? In 1980, 1981, an American president who was a good friend of Israel's, even if he wasn't President Trump, he did the AWACS deal with Saudi Arabia, and Israel was very much against it, and everyone was running around Washington, and Menachem Begin, Israel's prime minister, applied great pressure to everyone around, and then finally he won. And with these planes in Saudi hands, nothing happened. Well, if you're asking me, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I can say that there's huge consensus in the security system. And this is the true way, the way that you look at things, the way that you maintain your image. This is how we're connected to the United States. It is part of our strength. And the Americans have said it is not Amos Gilead, it is the American law. The Congress is committed to it, to maintain Israel's quality military edge. They said that they will not be selling these aircraft. It is not Amos Gilead. And it's not as if this, and no intelligence aircraft like in the 1980s can be compared to a fighter jet that has capabilities and stealth capabilities. And it was the Americans who said they would not sell it. So I want to say responsibly that if Israel will say no to it, it will not happen. Therefore, I do not accept what's being said by the Prime Minister. When the Prime Minister says that, does he understand that if he objects, it'll be a graver step if they take it? Yes, but if the Americans think it's only objection on paper and it's not really exerting any pressure to stop this transaction from happening, then these jets will be sold. Only if the Prime Minister is deemed one that has agreed. Because if one of these aircraft costs 80 million shekel. If Israel doesn't care, they must care. Did they decide on this on their own? No. We have a Minister of Defense, we have a Chief of General Staff, we have a Commander of the Air Force. They are the ones that should be there to make the decisions. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you have to stop it from happening. Just like you might say, what do I care if Iran has nuclear? What, they're going to attack Israel? They're not going to dare to attack Israel. Says who? The only way to make sure that we're not attacked is to not let them have nuclear weapons. So let's not let them have it. We've never been in a situation where we've been changing this balance. And if you let Abu Dhabi or the UAE the aircraft, why not give it to someone else? It's a huge market. Lockheed Martin won't voluntarily say, I won't sell. And it's not just me. It's not just some lonely man who's crazy and decides to say it. I mean, I have some understanding in it, but it's not my own personal perspective and opinion. We have to remind us that Prime Minister Netanyahu is denying it. And he's not denying it. Let's analyze the text. He's saying, I object. He didn't say, I will prevent it. In the United States, they understand these two verbs very well. To object is one thing. He'll write a letter to the ambassador or that he is objecting, that he would like to express his objection. Perhaps the ISA will ring someone up. Or else he will say, prevent. If he were to say, I will prevent this, the Americans will not dare sell it. Because this is a commitment that the United States made to Israel. And if he makes these decisions on his own after the whole affair with the submarines, that's very, very serious. So I want to ask you, is it not the Prime Minister's right? And here I'm going back to the submarines. When it came to the Egyptian submarines, he said, I approved, or in his words, I stopped making a face, pulling a face. No, he said, I already approved. Well, after he denied approving. I don't think it is his right, and I'll tell you why. Because this is not a monarchy. This is a democracy. There is a parliament in place. We have institutions and establishments in place. We have an army. And the Chief of General Staff's position is reached after they have a discussion within the army, talking to the commanders, the commander of the Navy, of the Air Force. There is a Ministry of Defense. They have heads of departments there. They have a cabinet. They have a Knesset, a parliament. He can make up his own mind on his own. This is not a monarchy. And that's constitutionally speaking, but essentially speaking, it is dangerous to Israel's security. And if I see things as they are, and he decides, and he is not saying he's going to prevent it, he's saying he's going to object. And I don't think he is going to deny the prevention. He is just saying he's objecting. And if you don't prevent it, if you only object, it is like agreeing. It's been said that his representative, probably Ron Dermer, who led this agreement with the UAE, and they actually confirmed it and approved it. They didn't just object to it. I want to go back to the matter of the submarines. And here, look, the Prime Minister is saying there was a secret. I can't tell you the secret. I can't say it to anyone. It is a huge secret that led me to agree or to stop objecting to. It's not a matter of agreeing to the sale of the two first submarines to Germany. And by the way, Israel, we must say, already agreed to the sale before Assisi was elected to the sale of two submarines, submarines 3 and 4, to the Egyptians. So if we have already agreed once, why not agree again? This is not, it's not precise. There is a difference between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's exactly the story. The Prime Minister said that I approved it because there's a secret. It's true, and I have worked with Prime Ministers, and there are secrets that only Prime Ministers know, a certain operation or other, Mossad, ISA, but a huge weapon system like a submarine, there's no secret that the Chief of General Staff and Minister of Defense don't know. I have been involved in such cases, and I used to report rigorously and give the details to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Defense, and to the Chief of General Staff. There are always secrets, but the fact that he's saying there is a secret, there is the secret, I think that is terrible too. But him deciding on his own, Germany does not require Israeli approval to sell. But Angela Merkel, because of the Holocaust, will not sell arms and weapons to the Arabs without getting our consent. Okay, so they're saying to us, forget it. He's saying don't forget it. Even if I were to object, it wouldn't have changed anything. If they had wanted to sell the submarines, I would not have been able to stop it. I only agreed in exchange for the secret. I'll tell you something then. It's very difficult for me to say this because we're talking about the Prime Minister, but I am telling you very responsibly that Germany, under the current Chancellor, Merkel, she is a woman with great moral standards, very high moral standards. One of them is the matter of the Holocaust. She provides submarines to Israel, even though there are publications and there are all sorts of statements made, and you've made some too, that she doesn't, but no. She says the submarines are given to Israel because, are sold to Israel because they prevent a second Holocaust. And of course, there are other incentives, money and so on, but they're not the real drivers here. She consults the Prime Minister. She says, "Can I sell it?" And it's important to us. And the Prime Minister says, "Yes." What's going on? Is this a dictatorship? How can he say yes without discussing this? And the fact that he is even saying there's a secret involved with this arms deal, whether there is one or there isn't, this process where the Prime Minister alone thinks he can decide these things on his own when he is changing this balance, it is like mortgaging the future of the second or third generation. And come on, a submarine, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of General Staff, and the Commander of the Navy don't know who brought into the Navy, into the army, these German submarines. Not the Navy. This is inconceivable. This is a huge step that will harm us. And I'm not just talking about democracy. This is going to harm the Israeli military's advantage. We have a cabinet, we have a Minister of Defense, we have a Chief of General Staff, we have a Security Committee, we have all these committees. Where are all these people? Well, we must say something about our number one enemy, Iran. The UN Council did not accept the US recommendation to limit the sale of arms. This is very grievous indeed, because the United States has actually alienated itself. Annulling the nuclear agreement was bad, but now the JCPOA was bad but in itself, but to withdraw from it was worse. And this agreement was bad, I reiterate, but it's been signed, and now they went back on it, and now what's going on? That's it, it's all gone, and the nuclear program in Iran is going ahead. And now we're going to the UN Council, and they're saying, we're going to have these sanctions, we are going to prevent the sale of advanced weapons. And they don't have a good army, they don't have the IRGC. So they're saying this is very important. We cannot have that. We're not going to say to us, they're not going to tell us what to do. The sanctions are going to expire, and Russia and China won't even have to do anything with it. So now, when there's sales to the Gulf, now there's going to be an arms race with China and Russia, who will be supplying Iran with weapons. Why not? Amos Gilead, I wanted to say with these encouraging words, but it's not encouraging words. So with these sharp words, I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you very much, and good luck. Thank you. Thank you.